Hello and welcome to my channel. Hi, I'm Wendy J. Haney. The last video I did, I showed you how to make half rectangle triangles a number of ways. Today, we're going back to the basics. We're going back to the good old half square triangle. Yep, I have a video from, quite a while back that showed you how to make 8 at a time. Very awesome when you need a flippin' ton of them. Well, I'm working on a baby quilt, and right now, I don't need 8 at a time. I need 4 at a time. So I figured, hey, why not do 2 things at once, showing you how to make half square triangles 1 at a time, 2 at a time, and 4 at a time. And then with the other video for 8, you've got it handled. The first ones we're going to do is 1 at a time. 1 at a time is pretty basic, and you do trim off a little more fabric than the other methods. In this case, you're going to need 2 squares of fabric that are the same size of your unfinished half square triangles. I need 2.5 inch unfinished HSTs. So that's what I have. 2 pieces of fabric, 2.5 inches each. And we're putting right sides together. And I always do that. And then I say, oh yeah, and by the way, you're supposed to mark a line. So you can mark your line ahead of time. In this case, you guessed it, corner to corner. And I'm getting dangerous. I'm not gonna pin them. Yep, these are little enough. I can just take them in the sewing machine. And you're gonna sew on the line. This I had to remind myself in this scenario. So many times we're stitching on either side. Not in this situation. In this situation, a 2.5 inch square, stitch on the line. We've stitched on the line. Then you're going to cut a 1/4 inch away from that line. So there is your waist. You have 2 little triangles. These usually go in my little jar that I use for leaders when I sew. I have a friend, Diane, that loves little triangles and things, so maybe I'll save them for her and send them off. But yeah, they're a little for me. So that's what we've got that we're trimming. If you open this up, and I'm going to just finger press it. There you go. Let's see how I did. This should be, yep, this is a 2.5 inch unfinished half square triangle. There we go. Quick, easy method, no serious math involved when you need just 1. But wait, how often do you really need just 1 half square triangle? I usually don't, unless I'm going scrappy. If I'm going scrappy and want to mix and match all over the place, doing 1 at a time works really well. Most of the time, I need at least 2. In that case, this method works really well. For 2 at a time, you're going to take your finished half square triangle size and add an inch. And in this case, you're going to want to make sure you do a scant 1/4 inch seam, and then there's very, very little to trim. If you want a little more to trim, add 1 1/4 inch, 1 1/8 inch. You can play with that with what works best for you. I need a finished 2 inch half square triangle, so I'm working with 3 inch squares. I have my 2 squares, and in this case, once again, I bet you can guess what we're gonna do. This trusty angled line from corner to corner. Put your 2 squares right sides together. In this case, we're sewing on a 1/4 inch on either side of the line. Yep, as I mentioned, different from making 1 at a time. You're sewing a 1/4 inch on either side. And there we have this. You've got our line down the middle and your seam on either side. I really should switch to dark thread for my videos so you can see this. I will take a photo of it. Yep, not any better on the back. Then we're going to cut on the line. And now you have 2 half square triangles. And I'm going to just finger press this one. I usually press to the dark. We're going to set that one aside. And I highly suggest you press before you trim. I am going to not this time so we can get this video done. I have my trusty Omni Grid ruler, which has my line on an angle, which is perfect. Yep, and in this case, I have a little amount to trim. And I did do a scant 1/4 inch, so I think you'll be happy with the trimability with a scant 1/4 inch and adding just 1 inch to your. So I made sure I got my line on the diagonal. I've got enough to trim down here, past 2.5, and enough on either sides. As you can see here, we're trimming a heck of a lot less off here than we did by making 1 at a time. Now, my 2.5 is on this side. The line of the ruler is on my corners because I've squared that size off. I've still got my angle. And there we go. A perfect 2-inch finished half square triangle. And if I trim up that one, I will have 2 of them. That is a simple way to make 2 half square triangles of the same size. And finally, 4 half square triangles at one time. I have a feeling this is more likely to be what you're looking for. A lot of patterns today have half square triangles in the corners of a block. So you need 4 at a time of the same fabric. And if that's the case, this is the method for you. This method does take a little more math to think about. No problem. Get your calculator out on your phone. You got this. Take the unfinished half square triangle size that you need. In this case, I need a 2.5 inch unfinished. Divide it by 0.64. And that is the size of the blocks that you need to start with. Well, that really doesn't let you trim off anything. So especially as a beginner, I would suggest you add a 1/4 inch. And you know what? You can play with this. Are you going to add a 1/4 inch? Maybe you only need 1/8 inch. You decide based on your sewing and how it works out whether you need more or not. Now we have our blocks, and I went with, if I remember right, this is a 4 1/4 inch block, and the other one I sewed, is a 4 1/8. I was playing with it to see what I could use. So I'm showing you a 4 1/4 inch square, but I'm going to show you a trimmed up 4 1/8. So you'll see kind of the difference there. We take our 2 blocks and what do you guess? Put them right sides together. You don't need to mark any lines at all. You're going to take it to the sewing machine. In this case, I do pin it. I pin it here, 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 and here to keep it square. You're going to stitch a 1/4 inch, 1/4 inch, 1/4 inch, all on all sides. You don't need to pivot in your corners. Just stitch it, flip it, stitch, etc. Okay? Now we got that. And here we go. This is my 4 1/8 inch. And oops, yep, this ruler will work. This time I do prefer to use my rotating mat. I have my block, I have seams, all 4 corners, and now I am going to cut corner to corner. And I like matching up my seams. And then I rotate it and cut the other way. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yep, we have our 4 half square triangles. And I am going to just finger press this one, but I would highly suggest you finger press and then press with the iron before you come back here and trim. And now we're going to trim these up to 2.5. And guess what? I am going to be much happier if I added a 1/4 inch, a full 1/4 inch instead of an 1/8. In this case, actually, I want my angle, my Omni grid. I'm going to put my angle there. So I don't want to trim it without having my angle right. I have enough to trim. So I think I could get by with adding the 1/8. So I went with a 4 1/8 inch square instead of 4 1/4. And yeah, I have room to trim. But if I was kittywampus at all on my seam and this needed to be tilted a little, well, that 1/8 of an inch extra is not going to give me wiggle room. Once again, you play with it. You decide what works for you. Get my angle there. And in this case, my 2.5, because that's my squared up size already. My angle. And we trim it up. And there we go. We have a perfect 2.5 inch unfinished, 2 inch finished half square triangle. And when I trim up the rest of those, I'm going to have 4 of them ready for my baby quilt to see if this helps my corners. Playing with some designs. And that's how we do it. You can do 1, 2, 4, watch the other video, and you can learn how to do 8. Thank you so much for watching, and take care and have a great day.